Hello, viewers. It's Cynthia Michael from Screw Review. Bringing my 700 podcast. This is my 700 podcast. Like always, I'm going to speak very loudly, very clearly, and very slowly in case you don't understand me. Also, I try to do my best not to breathe hard during this art podcast recording as well, not to cause any art feedback as well. And also, if you're under 18, this art podcast recording will attain to adult language. Once again, if you're under 18, this art podcast recording will attain to adult language. If you're over 18, that means you get to watch this art podcast recording. Now, with this and everything else out the way, let's get into the topic of this video. Recently, Daredevil, the revival Daredevil Born Again series has wrapped up its first season. I gotta say, oh my God, it did not disappoint. I know that a lot of people had reservations about, where it keep its hard, gritty tone, and plus, will Disney will allow it to be an R-rated show, and whatnot. But Disney has delivered a good R-rated version of Daredevil or Daredevil that we love from the Netflix era. So basically, it was good that Charlie Cox and most of all the original cast members from the original series came back to do this revival series as well. So basically, I gotta say, it's all about. I think that the main point of this series is that it's all about it's not. I think the main point of the series is anybody. Sometimes that change can be a good thing. Sometimes change can be a good thing. Change can be a bad thing. But sometimes you can't change your nature. So basically, throughout what Kingpin went through the Hawkeye series and in the Echo series, after what he after the things that Kingpin went through during the Hawkeye series and in the Echo series, he was he was kind of like suggested to change, Echo used her mind power, you can change. You don't have to be this dude. You can change. You can change. So basically, that's what the Kingpin too. Like at the time during that time, he was open. After the events of the Echo series, maybe she decided to maybe I should try something else. Just try to do something else. In the case of Daredevil, Matt, the death of Foggy really messed him up. After Bullseye killed him, that really messed him up badly, and therefore he changed he gave up being Daredevil and basically changed his whole life, but that was out of grief. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, when it came to the Kingpin, he he wanted to try to change, but when it came to Matt, after Foggy's death, he was like, screw it, dude, screw it. He forcefully changed himself. So basically, you know, Matt did it change unwillingly, but the Kingpin changed willingly. So basically, the Kingpin, I'm willing to try to change myself, but Matt, Matt is Foggy Death forced him to change himself, and therefore, throughout the series, we see Fish and Matt, fighting against their natures. They can't help, it's if you have a certain nature about yourself, you can't really change your nature that easily. So basically, Matt, we see Matt stuck, seems like his change is struggling with his situations and whatnot, about him not being Daredevil a bit, not really caring, but he was forced to put Daredevil, put back on the Daredevil moniker after White Tiger's niece, got kidnapped by mules and whatnot. And Fisk's case, dealing with city politics is pretty much just like dealing with the gangster underworld, and basically, he he did his best. He did his best not to fall into old habits, but but just like politics, hey, karma's just like politics, and basically, he was forced to go back into his little. At first, he was forced to go back to his little kingpin ways a little bit, as mayor. Then things came full circle. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, but uh, it's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong about changing yourself, but if you're not willing to, but if you're forced to change yourself for some reason that you're not willing to deal with, something force you to change, whether it be good or bad, but you're not willing to accept that change, it's not gonna stick, and also your nature, everybody has a certain nature to their personality. So basically, sometimes you need to find a different channel to focus your nature, that nature that you have, in a different way. But we see this with Fish and Matt, trying to do something else, try to do something else that doesn't force them to go back in their ways, but their changes, for in a way force them back to their old selves, but with a better understanding, Fish said, realized that I always will be the kingpin, and Matt realized that I always going to be Daredevil. So basically, that's what the changes we see throughout the series with Matt and Fish. Hey, they wanted to be better than they were before, but and they soon realized that like you know we did face some issues that made us change ourselves. But at the same time, we realized that we can't help being the two people that we are in this series, the two people that we really are. So basically, Matt was Matt was forcing himself not to be Daredevil anymore, and Kingpin in a way was changing himself not to be Kingpin anymore. But they soon realized that these personas that they made are a part of them, and they can't just easily get rid of these personas that they created. So basically, that's what I see about the whole main message is sometimes we we can try to change ourselves, but in the process, do we want to get rid of our true selves? It's all about it's it's okay to a person to want to change, but at the same time, do you really want? How much are you willing to change your true selves and deny your true nature and whatnot? And also, this season really hits home with what's going on in America right now with Trump and whatnot. This series was came this series came out at the right time because things are a little bit crazy right now with our government and our president right now. So basically, this was the right time for Marvel to come out with this, with Trump, what's going on with President Trump right now. So basically, it hit home, and also it was good to see Punisher, back in action and whatnot. So basically, I was at least we know that Jessica Jones is supposed to be in the second season. The second season is being filmed here. I live in New York City, so basically, I've been down to where they were filming that, and basically, the second season of Daredevil Born Again is coming along. So basically, like I can't wait to for the second season of Daredevil Born Again. But otherwise, this was a good start for Marvel and Disney's R-rated Disney Plus series and starting off and whatnot. So basically, most likely we'll probably get the Punisher movie. Before we get season two of Daredevil, most likely that's going to happen before season two. So basically, I can't wait to see that. So anyway, what do you guys think about Daredevil Born Again? Born Again season one, good, bad, or just okay? Please let me know. Anyway, signing off from Screw You One.